Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Cantlow, and I am the Assistant Counsel to Brooklyn Borough President Eric L. Adams. To my left, I have Richard Barrick, who's the Land Use Director, and to my right is Ina Gusenfeld, who's the Land Use Coordinator. There are 2 items on the agenda this evening. Please note that this hearing is being recorded to comply with the public law for transparency. It will be available for viewing on Borough President Adams' website, brooklyn-usa.org, or on the One Brooklyn channel on YouTube. Again, web viewers may submit timely comments to Ask Eric at brooklynbp.nyc.gov for Borough President Adams' consideration. Please call the first item and let us begin.
Calendar item number 1, 180393 ZMK 180394 ZRK.
These applications submitted by the Canton Park Rehabilitation and Nursing Center pursuant to Section 197-C and 201 of the New York City Charter for a zoning map amendment to change property located at the southeast corner of Canton Avenue and Rugby Road from R3X to R6A. Such actions would facilitate a 4,830 square foot enlargement of the 119-bed nursing and rehabilitation center located at 1312 Canton Avenue in Brooklyn Community District 14. Additionally, the applicant seeks a zoning text amendment to Appendix F of the New York City Zoning Resolution, inclusionary housing designated areas and mandatory inclusionary housing areas for Brooklyn Community District 14 to ensure that any future residential development is pursuant to MIH. Community Board 14 voted to approve this application on October 15, 2018. Would Richard Lobel, the representative from for this application, please state your name for the record and present the application?
Good evening, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant, and we thank the Brooklyn Borough President's Office for hearing us on this application, which, as mentioned, was not only approved by the Community Board, but was approved nearly unanimously 26-1. We were talking to the guy who voted against it. I'm joined tonight by Richard Bienenfeld, the project architect, as well as Rick Trento, who is an administrator from the Canton Park Nursing Home. The nursing home is an existing nursing home. You'll see the sketch of the nursing home on the screen. And essentially, as was stated, there's 2 aspects to the rezoning. One of them is to rezone a portion of the lot occupied by the nursing home from an R3X to an R6A, and the second being to map an inclusionary housing district. The effect of this rezoning would be, as you can see on the screen in front of you, to convert from the existing building to the proposed merely being the enclosure of space on the 5th floor of the nursing home that would amount for roughly 4,000 square feet of floor area. So to locate the site, you can see that there's a land use map. The site is located to the south of the Parade Ground Park, and the lot itself, as you can see, is currently occupied by the nursing home, but is split between an R3X district to the east of the site and is located within an R6A district to the west. The current allotment, as far as the breakdown is concerned, is roughly 20% of the lot is located within the R6A portion, and roughly 80% is located within the R3X. The rezoning, as is illustrated on page 2, would allow the entirety of the building to now be located within an R6A district. What this would do would be to increase the available floor area such that the 5th floor could now be enclosed. In addition, you'll note that there is one lot to the south of the site, also located in blue here. That site is a Buddhist temple, which is located within a 1-family home. That would also be included within the rezoning area, although it's not included within the development site. Again, with both the existing and proposed zoning, you have a zoning change map. You can see that on the block between Argyle and Rugby Road that there is a line bisecting the lot and the block. The lot was originally included within the Flatbush rezoning in 2009, which actually rezoned the R3X to the R31 to R3X. But you can see from the proposal that we would merely be enlarging the R6A to encompass the entirety of the site. This is essentially in line with the goals of the 2009 Flatbush rezoning. It is not creating any additional development on the site with the exception of the enlargement of the 5th floor. To the extent that the building was for whatever reason demolished, which is not the intention of Canton Park Nursing Home, the site, due to the mapping of MIH, would be required to include affordable housing. And with that, I would just go to Richard Bienenfeld for a brief discussion of the architectural plans. I would note that currently the property is home to approximately 119 seniors. This is a heavily utilized site. Currently, the employment at the site is roughly 125 employees, included in both administrative and day-to-day nursing operations. This is a very respected site within the community, and also as far as the real purpose behind the rezoning, other than the idea of allowing the applicant to provide quality care and accommodations to the residents of the site, this is also allowing us to come closer to abiding by both DOH and federal guidelines with regards to spaces required for both rehabilitation, dining, and other accessory uses. So with that, I would just briefly hand this over to Richard Bienenfeld, who can discuss the exact nature of the enlargement.
Okay. So the slide we're looking at now is a kind of like a small representation of the site context, showing the existing building shaded, and kind of on the right side of that very small site plan is the existing drop-off, vehicular drop-off to the building. I think I'll go back a couple of slides. So if you look at the picture on the left, that's actually a photo of the existing building, which is a 4-story building which has an existing partial 5th floor, which is on the right side of the building or the west side of the building. That partial 5th floor faces a large roof area, and the large roof area, when the operator of the nursing facility came to us several years ago, said that roof area would be an excellent place to expand their recreation, physical therapy, and occupational therapy, which was very, very constricted within the facility now. And with all the new DOH guidelines and other guidelines that come down, all the way down from the federal government, the facility could serve the community much better and serve its own residents much better if there was more room for recreation and more room for physical and occupational therapy. So the sketch on the right shows a glassed-in area up on what is now roof. So at that story, there is already a partial 5th floor, but it would be filled in with that area that could be used for recreation, physical and occupational therapy. This is a plan of the proposed roof, and it's a little hard to see with this resolution, but about 2/3 of this existing floor is now roof, and 1/3 is existing facility. Those facilities, some of which now is actually used for PTOT, but it'd be much expanded. I guess that's a little better picture of it. And this diagram is actually showing, we have dotted off, up on the 5th story, we have dotted off the area that we're adding and the area that's existing. And there's a cross-section through the building, very, very schematic, which shows the extent of that added floor. So that's really as much as we needed to lay out for the building in order to do the zoning analysis. And it was with that and with the zoning analysis that we approached city planning, and that's how we approached the community board, and that's now what we're explaining to you.
We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. So we have about 4 to 5 questions on behalf of the Borough President in connection with this application. So the first question, it is the Borough President's policy to promote the use of sustainable and renewable energy, resources focused on advancing a sustainable future in Brooklyn. It is also Borough President Adams' policy to promote practices to retain stormwater runoff. What consideration has been given, possibly in cooperation with the Department of Environmental Protection, the Mayor's Office of Sustainability, NYSERDA or NYPA, towards incorporating passive house design, solar panels, blue, green, or white roof covering, and/or DEP rain gardens?
That's a very, very good question. Like I tried to explain just before, so far we've been laying out the space required for the new facility and the amount of bulk that we'd be needing and how that impacts the zoning. So that's about as far as we've gotten. In terms of the details of the construction of the building components, and the features of how it would be heated, cooled, ventilated, and how it would also, respond to its environment. We will carefully give that all very, very careful consideration, as we do with every building today. We're very, very aware of the need in our culture, our society, for buildings to be more sustainable, to be more reactive and interactive with their environments, and to last, and to be very, very careful with the use of resources.
Okay, thank you. The second question, as part of Borough President Adams' Cross Brooklyn Initiative, or Connecting Residents on Safer Streets, the Borough President seeks to create safer crossings by introducing measures such as protected painted sidewalk extensions. Rugby Road is one of the Canton Avenue crossings from the Victorian Flatbush neighborhoods to the highly utilized parade grounds. Should the New York City Department of Transportation determine that such measures are warranted at this intersection of Canton Avenue and Rugby Road, DOT would proceed provided that such painted sidewalk extension would be maintained by a third party. What consideration would be given to making such a commitment?
Thank you for that question, too. I did see the notes from the earlier meeting, and I did have a chance to discuss this with the nursing home operator, and he was very, very concerned about the Cross Brooklyn initiative and how positive that would be for the residents of the facility itself. Not only is it important to all the people in the neighborhood who use that intersection, of course it's especially important to the residents of our own facility and their guests and visitors, and professionals who come there every day. So this is something that I really do believe the operators of the facility would be very concerned about and very, very happily to participate in it.
It is Borough President Adams' policy to maximize good quality jobs for Brooklynites. Please outline what steps will be taken to ensure the inclusion and participation of minority and women-owned business enterprises and local business enterprises in the process of construction on this site.
So we had a conversation internally with regards to both MBWE employment as well as local business enterprises. Currently, the applicant in any of their construction projects uses local Brooklyn construction companies to perform that work. I actually would probably defer to Rick to discuss their past experience and what they would intend for this site, with the understanding that we'd be happy to submit further materials to further support the discussion.
Good evening. Good evening. Currently, we use...
You could state your name for the record, please.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. My name is Rick Trent. I'm the administrator at Canton Park Rehabilitation and Nursing Center. And currently, we use a local construction company called Royal Builders, who we would use for the purposes of the construction.
And the last question, when hiring opportunities arise, how does the nursing home go about filling such opportunities? And what steps might be taken in the future to promote locally based hiring?
So with the expansion of this space, it will certainly require us to hire more people for the facility. Currently, we have 125 employees at the facility. 85% of them are Brooklyn, residing in Brooklyn. And due to the expansion, we would be able to provide jobs in the housekeeping realm, the recreation realm, and rehab realm, which are 1199 based employment.
And can you clarify, so how do you go about with your hiring so that it might best position local folks to get the jobs?
So typically, I mean, we like to hire through word of mouth. That's always like the best way. But we would put ads out on internet sites such as Indeed to recruit these individuals to come for employment at the facility.
Thank you. Just one clarification. So within the rezoning, there's an additional property. And if I could understand more of the basis, does it have anything to do with the transition height between R3X and R6A, or is there another reason why that property's in there?
Right, so the borders and the boundaries of a zoning district, generally, we discuss those with city planning in the course of an application. And so it was agreed upon by the applicant that pursuant to the context of the area, and especially land use, that we would extend that boundary, I believe, to 170 feet south of the street line, such that the Buddhist temple was going to be included in that. It doesn't have any, I don't think it has any direct bearing on our development site, but I think that the idea was that given the fact that those uses are not only conforming but also contextual with each other, that the district would be so extended.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will call for any speakers. I know we have one that has submitted a speaker slip. If there's anyone else that needs to speak, you still need to fill out a...
For the next application.
Oh, it's for the next? Oh, okay. Is there anyone that needs to speak for this particular item? Okay.
So calendar item number 1 is closed. Calendar item number 2, 170458ZMK, 170459ZRK.
These applications submitted by West 16-22 Properties LLC pursuant to Sections 197-C and 201 of the New York City Charter for zoning map and text amendments affecting one block bounded between East 22nd and East 23rd Streets, Highland View Park, and Surf Avenue in Brooklyn Community District 13. The zoning map amendments propose changing portions of such property currently zoned R5 to R6A and R7D districts and establish C2-4 commercial overlays within those districts. The zoning text amendments would enlarge the special Coney Island District's Coney West subdistrict, establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area, and extend the Coney Island transit zone map to cover this block. Such actions would facilitate the development of a 5- and 12-story commercial and residential building with 78 dwelling units in place of existing residential buildings containing 34 apartments at 3016 and 3022 West 22nd Street and 3017 and 3023 West 23rd Street, approximately 240 feet south of Surf Avenue. The project would provide approximately 20 units affordable to households with average rent based on 60% of area median income pursuant to option 1. Community Board 13 voted to disapprove this application on October 24, 2018. Would Richard Lobel, the representative for this application, please state your name and for the record and present the application?
Good evening, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant West 22nd to West 23rd Street, actually West 16 to 22 Street Properties LLC. Joining me tonight are the Winiarski family. I'm joined by David Winiarski as well as Nativ Winiarski and Ronnie Winiarski. The applicants are seeking a total of 5 land use actions pursuant to the subject rezoning application. And so to look at the land use map on the next page, you can see that the current special Coney Island district is mapped to an area both east and south of the proposed rezoning area. So the proposed land use actions would accomplish 5 things. The first thing would be to amend the text of the special Coney Island district regulations to create a new Coney West subdistrict parcel H, and a zoning map amendment to map that new parcel H over the subject property, which, as you can see, constitutes approximately 2/3 of the northern portion of the subject block. In addition to that, we have a subject zoning map amendment, which would amend the existing R5 district to both R7D C24 districts, which you can see along the northern and eastern portion of the rezoning area, and R6A C24 district, which would be along the southwestern portion of the area. The fourth action would be to amend the Appendix F, of course, with any mandatory inclusionary housing rezoning. This would be amended to include this district such that the boundaries of the mandatory inclusionary housing area would be coterminous with the proposed rezoning area. And finally, we would seek a text amendment of Appendix I, the transit zone, to establish the area within the transit zone. The subject block, as can be seen in the area map on the screen, is currently approximately 50% occupied by vacant or underutilized parcels. Of the 25 parcels included in the rezoning, roughly 11 have no use on them whatsoever, and several are underutilized to an FAR of 1 or less. So you really have block frontages here, including 50% of the block frontages on Surf Avenue alone that are vacant or underutilized. The parcel itself, as you can see, is that highlighted in red on both the area map as well as this tax map, and that is the development site. The development site itself is roughly 18,000 square feet. The larger rezoning area constitutes roughly 89,000 square feet. As the office may be aware from last night's community board meeting, this was done in consultation with the Department of City Planning. However, in our experience, having represented many applicants before the Department of City Planning and the City Planning Commission, this is a relatively small development site and development area relative to the larger rezoning area. This is roughly 18,000 out of 89,000 square feet, or roughly 22 to 24% of the rezoning area. So the zoning change map demonstrates exactly what would be done here. As can be seen from the 2009 rezoning, the Coney Island Comprehensive Rezoning Plan, the areas to the east and subsequently to the south of the property were rezoned to be included within the special Coney Island district, and as well as being rezoned with an R7D. The proposal establishes 2 zoning districts on the site. The first would be the R7D, which would be that facing Surf Avenue as well as the eastern portion of the block. This is in line with land use in the context of the area, given that the R7D portion faces the R7D district, and the R7D district to the north faces Surf Avenue, busy thoroughfare, as well as the R6 district to the north. In consultation with City Planning, the southwestern portion of the rezoning area would be rezoned to R6A. This is given the land use in the area, as well as the land use map, which shows in the zoning map an R5 district to the west of the site. We have an illustrative rendering which demonstrates the proposed bulk of the site. You'll notice that this is a 2-tiered development site. The 12-story portion of the site would be located on the eastern portion of the block, and the 5-story portion of this site would be located on the western portion of the block. This is pursuant both to the underlying zoning district as well as the special district regulations, specifically those of sub-area H, which would dictate certain height limitations within 100 feet of Surf Avenue, as well as other height limitations within the proposed rezoning area. And you can see a sectional diagram which demonstrates by section the nature of the proposed development. The proposed development would yield roughly 100,000 square feet total. That 100,000 square feet would be separated between approximately 80,000 square feet of residential development, constituting roughly 78 units, and roughly 20,000 square feet of commercial use, which would be on the ground floor. The residential units, of course, pursuant to MIH, would be roughly 25% or 20 inclusionary units included within that total. There was much discussion at the community board with regards to the applicant-owned sites, as well as the obvious issue of existing tenants. So we thought it would be useful to run through exactly what was included in the development site here. There are 4 buildings existing within the development site. The first is 3022 West 22nd Street. As can be seen from the materials, this is a 21-unit building, of which 17 are rent-regulated. There are 19 studios, of which 350 square feet is the average square footage, and 2 one-bedrooms with an average of roughly 500 square feet. These are all buildings which are quite old. They date back to, I think, roughly the 1930s or earlier. And the buildings here reflect these pre-existing grandfathered but legal conditions. There are, this is a walk-up building. It is not ADA accessible. There are no sprinklers. It is not flood zone compliant. And as far as the existing tenancy within that building, it is interesting to note that due to the nature of the building and the size of the building, this is a building in which most of the applicants are short-term, or most of the residents are short-term. 7 occupants in the building have been there for less than 5 years, and 13 occupants have been in the building for less than 3 years. The second building is 3016 West 22nd Street, which has 4 unregulated units. These are all studio units, quite small at an average of 250 square feet. Again, being a long-standing, existing, legal, non-complying building and non-complying building, this is not an ADA accessible building. There are no sprinklers. It is not flood zone compliant, and 3 of the occupants in the building have been there for less than a year. 3017 West 23rd Street has 6 unregulated units. Again, these are studio units averaging 350 square feet, not ADA accessible, not sprinklered. They are not flood zone compliant, and all tenants have been there for less than 4 years. Finally, on 3023 West 23rd Street, there are 3 unregulated units. These are studio units averaging 300 square feet, and again, are not flood zone compliant. 2 of the tenants have been in the building for less than 3 years. The purpose of this in the illustration is basically to stand in stark contrast to what would be proposed at the site. The units, of course, would be in compliance with 2018 Department of Buildings and other regulations. They would, of course, all be flood code compliant. They would all be sprinklered buildings. They would all be elevator buildings. The quality of the units right now are subpar. This is not by any reason of the inactivity of the owner. The owner, as was presented in prior evidence to the community board, actually is a responsible owner. The DHCR and other agencies reviewing many of these properties have indicated that there are very few violations, if any, on these 4 properties. But the truth of the matter is that these buildings are in bad shape. They were badly hit in Superstorm Sandy and do not provide really optimal living conditions for tenants at the site. Finally, with regards to a unit breakdown, to anticipate some discussion, the proposed building would contain 78 units, of which 20 would be permanently affordable, and those break down to roughly 15 one-bedroom units, of which 3 would be affordable, and 63 two-bedroom units, of which 17 would be affordable. We find that this unit breakdown is a responsible unit breakdown, given the size of the units themselves, the prevalent 2-bedroom size of the units, and would provide reasonable accommodations to families within the local area. And finally, with regards to the rents would be charged pursuant to prevailing AMI guidelines for 2018. While these are listed here, the 1 and 2 bedrooms would be in accordance with rents and incomes reflecting the latest regulations. So that's the bulk of the presentation. We're available to answer any questions, as is Ronnie and Nativ.
Yes, actually, we have a few questions for you. Community Board 13 expressed concerns about the potential for both direct and indirect residential displacement resulting from the requested rezoning and demolition required to facilitate the applicant's development proposal. With over 30 occupied rent-stabilized units, what actions does the property owner intend to take to secure sound, affordable housing accommodations for all those who would be displaced to facilitate building demolition?
So I'd just start by saying that this has now been a topic of conversation with the community board for several hearings, both land use and general board hearings. This is a situation where the applicant is taking this issue very seriously. And as we understand it, there are, given roughly 32 units, roughly within the proposed rezoning area, the units are broken down between both rent-regulated and non-regulated tenants. So with regards to the rent-regulated tenants, and as can be discussed further by Ronnie, those tenants will be provided with notice and relocation options in accordance with existing DHCR regulations, with which the applicant is very familiar. As far as the non-rent regulated tenants are concerned, the protections offered to those tenants would be to provide them with at least 12 months of notice before construction, as well as to offer those tenants units in other applicant-owned buildings within Coney Island at their current rent rates. This is a commitment which the applicant is prepared to make. They own other properties within the area, and after a great discussion with the community board, has offered to put in a plan in order to effectuate this type of relief. I'm happy to, Ronnie is happy to answer any other direct questions, but that's basically what we've got.
Okay, the second question. Given community concerns regarding displacement and prevalence of rent-burdened households, please identify what marketing strategies, such as designating one of this community's affordable housing nonprofits as the affordable housing administering agent, would be used in the tenant selection process in order to ensure the highest level of participation from Community District 13. Would such marketing strategy start off with a financial literacy campaign to assist area residents in becoming lottery eligible?
So from prior applications at the Brooklyn Borough Presidents Office, we know that the selection of an administrating agent is important, as well as tenant education and potential tenant education with regards to the ability to locate in these buildings. So of course, first, there is a 50% preference for local Community Board 13 members with regards to the affordable units here. The applicant is not selected yet an administering agent, and of course is willing to take any recommendations with that regard. We know from past experience in the area, as well as discussions with the community, that there is, as opposed to other areas of Brooklyn, somewhat of a shortage of qualified administering agents with a focus in Coney Island. Pursuant to discussions with the applicant team, we have made some very limited discussions with potential administering agents. These have not yet been proved fruitful, but we have, just for informational purposes, have had some discussions with housing nonprofits. And again, we'd be happy to take any recommendations as these exist, but we do note from prior applications that there are certain applications where administering agents, local Brooklyn administering agents, have been used. We intend to talk to those administering agents, and despite the challenges with regards to Coney Island and not having really a very focused administering agent lists for this area, we're happy to provide that and to continue in those conversations.
So in addition to the administering agent, where you don't really have that in the community, there are still ways that things can work in tandem with the administering agent. For example, you have a local network, whether it's the churches, other religious facilities within Coney Island, just finding out what those groups of organizers are. So if they're holding events at their facilities and bringing in the administering agent, there's a way to create that added connection.
We appreciate the comment, and our, the process right now in Community Board 13, the fact that we have now been there frequently and have really gotten to know some of the community members, we're really interested in engaging in that regard and in bringing some local community folks into this and to try to be part of the process. But we do appreciate that.
And the third question actually is sort of a three-part question, and I think some of them I already went through one of the previous slides. Regarding the intended affordable housing units, what is the qualifying income range for prospective households based on household size? The second part, what are the anticipated rents based on the number of bedrooms? And the third, what is the distribution of units by bedroom size?
Right. So with regards to AMIs, I think the idea here would be that the applicant would select option 1, which is, of course, 60% AMI. The discussion around that was, we apologize, but some of the bedroom sizes as well as the maximum rents reference both 80% AMI and 30% AMI. So these basically offer ranges between home rents at both the high end of the ratio as well as the low end of the ratio. But generally speaking, for 80% AMI, the 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms would be offered at ranges of $1,252 to $1,500, and probably somewhat less than that, given that the average would be lower. And essentially that would go in accordance with the AMI guidelines, with the understanding that of the 25% that would be offered at 60% AMI, a full 10% would be offered at 40% AMI.
And actually, it's not 10% of that at the 60%. It's 10% of the whole building, which is really 40% of the units that are applying to the MIH standard.
We understand and have heard that comment before, so thank you.
And 2 of the last questions actually are similar to the previous applications. It is the Borough President's policy to promote the use of sustainable and renewable energy resources focused on advancing a sustainable future in Brooklyn. It is also Borough President Adams' policy to promote practices to retain stormwater runoff. What consideration has been given, possibly in cooperation with the Department of Environmental Protection, the Mayor's Office of Sustainability, NYSERDA, or NYPA, towards incorporating passive house design, wind turbines, solar panels, blue-green or white roof covering, and/or rain gardens?
So again, having familiarity with the Brooklyn Borough President's preferences with regards to sustainability measures, while the applicant, again, is applying for rezoning and does not have a site-specific plan yet, the applicant is looking into sustainability measures. Specifically, I know that the architect has now discussed a green roof as a starting point. However, we don't have anything with specificity to give to the Brooklyn Borough President, but we understand that this is an important factor, and in prior rezonings during the course of the conversation have been able to offer some sustainability measures. So we are familiar with those. We're looking forward to further designing the building, and while we can't offer any of those on the plans right now, I know that Ronnie has discussed this with the project architect and that we're seeking to do that in the eventual design.
Thank you. And the final question, it is the Borough President's policy to maximize good quality jobs for Brooklynites. Please outline what steps will be taken to ensure the inclusion and participation of minority and women-owned business enterprises and local business enterprises in the process of construction on this site.
So similarly, we are familiar with this requirement as well. And this is something where we've talked about it with the applicant. We don't yet have any definitive numbers with regards to percentages. We do know that the Winiarski family is both a long-standing owner and developer in the area, as well as a responsible developer. So again, we're happy to have this conversation as we walk through the rest of the process and further discuss the possibility of including both MBWE and LBE contractors and subcontractors within the discussion. But we, again, have a great deal of experience with regards to this type of development, particularly in residential development in Brooklyn. And so we look forward to this conversation and hope to be able to provide further specifics.
So that concludes the questions for this application. I think we have one speaker, Zaire Khan.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Zamir Khan.
Samir, I'm sorry.
No worries. My name is Zamir Khan, representing 32BJ. I've worked as a doorman on the Upper East Side of Manhattan for the past 9 years. I'm here tonight to share our concerns regarding West 1622 Properties, LLC, an affiliate of Winiarski Equities, proposed development at the West 22nd, West 23rd Street rezoning. As you might know, 32BJ represents more than 80,000 property service workers in our city. Our members clean and maintain buildings like the two that are being proposed this evening. We believe that developers should commit to providing good quality jobs in order to build a more equitable economy here in the city. Winiarski has not made this commitment at this development at this moment. The developer has stated that a goal of their proposal for the rezoning is to add to and strengthen the surrounding mixed race community, or mixed use community, I'm sorry. The developer also estimates that the project will generate 7 building service jobs. We believe that if West 1622 Properties LLC is to deliver on its promise to strengthen the local community, these building service jobs should be good jobs that pay family-sustaining wages and give local workers dignity and security. For these reasons, we respectfully request that you urge the developer to commit to providing good prevailing wage building service jobs as part of your recommendations for this project. Thank you for having us, and have a good night.
Thank you so much. Are there any additional speakers? Okay, hearing none. The hearing on these items is now closed. Thank you for participating in this public hearing. Borough President Adams will review the applications we heard today and will soon submit his recommendations to the City Planning Commission. Borough President Adams would like to take this opportunity to remind you that the City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on these items. The hearing is now adjourned. Borough President Adams would like to remind those viewing on the website that timely comments can be submitted by email to askeric@brooklynbp.nyc.gov. Thank you.
Just a quick request for anyone who came in after the hearing started, if you could please sign in on your way out. Thank you very much.